Okay, hello, I'm John. You presumably don't know me. This video will be a somewhat lengthy venture into the question of whether you should or should not start a business in high school or college. That is a question that I want to devote thought and nuance to because it deserves that. It's a small question in many ways. It's also a big question in a lot of ways, and it's the question of how you want to spend some of the most formative years of your life, whether you want to pursue your education in the career that is presumably derived from such, or you want to do something new, and whether you want to make money from it, whether it's a passion project, whether your family wants you to commit to academics or to a side hobby. These are all questions that people in high school and college are considering more than ever now. I'm a freshman in college. I have a lengthy background in starting businesses, throughout my education, whether for better or worse in many situations. And it is those experiences that I hope to bring to the table, right? Both as someone who has gone through high school and some of college now, and someone who has started businesses and devoted a lot of time and effort for my own reasons to those efforts. I will also do my best not to just consider my own perspective in this, but to bring a wide array of perspectives and questions to the table, many of which are from people that I have talked to who have both chosen to devote themselves to academics, to not start a business, or many of those also who just haven't considered the question. Now, what I hope you take away from this is not my perspective, but rather the questions that I'll propose, because those are ultimately what should and will guide your decision. Don't do something because of me, don't do something not because of me, but we will cover quite a wide array, and I think you will ultimately be better off in making the decision with such subjects in mind as opposed to the inverse, and opposed to just walking into something without knowing why you're doing it, whether you should do it, or really how you could do it better. And I first want to comment upon why this is such a prevalent topic nowadays. I also think it is an unprecedented one, right? The notion of a young person, involving themselves in the real world, in business, in a product, or providing a service is a fairly novel thing. It is really the internet that has democratized opportunity and information to such an extent that young people can do this now, and you are seeing in ever increasing numbers young people start their own businesses. And when I say business, that is a catch-all. What I really mean is just creating a product or providing a service that there's value, right? That someone wants, that you can hopefully sell your product or service to. And there's such a spectrum that young people are working on now. You're seeing theme pages and social media marketing agencies, but also lemonade stands and washing cars and curb painting. And then you're also getting these incredibly young founders going out there and raising money and creating unicorns and any number of Metas and Googles. We're all just founded by college students, by students just like yourself. And so you have this whole breadth now of entrepreneurship and business the young people are able to explore and are fully exploring for the first time. I also want to note that for some, business is a hobby or a passion or a side project. For others, what they're doing is their life. It's what they want to do. And there is that whole spectrum of scale and intent that's layered upon this spectrum of opportunity. Now, in terms of my perspective, I want to briefly cover my background. I founded my first quote-unquote business, and I say that with a smile because it's not really a business. It's just going out and trying something and creating a product or service and seeing if it works. And that is the origin of most business. That was certainly mine. And for me, that came around the start of middle school. I then did a wide variety of side projects or hustles for a few years. So all your e-commerce and drop shipping and content websites and apps and just the whole wide array of projects that never did really go anywhere. And then at the start of high school, I settled into writing and self-publishing, and I founded one of my companies now. That is a publishing company. We self-publish domestically in the US and then traditionally publish internationally. And then about a year ago, I started another company with a close friend and partner of mine. What that is it was originally a marketing company, primarily aimed toward construction companies. Now that's become not just a marketing service provider, but also a product provider, not just on the marketing front, but also the operations and management and hiring front. We also did just roll a product from that company out as a separate company, and we just raised money for that. So I have experienced that whole spectrum of bootstrapping and your side hustles like curb painting, car washing, etc. I've been there and done that. And then also your passion projects, which really for me was writing and writing my own books in addition to trying to build a company around that. And then on your other end, the more classical startup, hey, let's raise money, let's build something here. Now, since I have put such a volume of effort into these ventures throughout my schooling and life as a whole, I also do want to bring into the conversation what you lose by putting that volume of effort into things, and what you could potentially lose if you decide to do so. In addition, of course, to the yield and the many, many benefits of entering into business or just trying to do something cool, impacts and engages with the real world. And finally, there's this big question of dropping out that I want to touch on before we get into the bulk of the video. For some people, college is a means to an end. It's a means of essentially just raising the average amount of money, or the amount of money that you expect to make. And in that case, if the expected value of your business and the money you make from that exceeds the value of your degree, you'll reasonably drop out. For others, it's the social experience. It is the lack of responsibility in a sense, and just being around people your own age that really matters. And in that sense, people don't drop out. So I think I will touch on that further or later on. But I think that really does come down to what you want to get out of college and what you want to get out of a business. And what I'll lastly touch on is how you can best set yourself up for success as a young person, whether in high school or college or even middle school, looking to get into business or just sell something, make something, see what's out there. And I think what I want to start with initially is the question of why do you want to start a business? Now, if you don't know whether you want to start a business and that's why you're watching this video, that's another subject matter. But if you do want to start a business, I urge you to ask yourself why. For some people, it's for the money, and that's completely fine. For other people, it's again because you have a passion, you want to do something with it. For others, it's just a hobby or a way to make quick cash so you can afford lunch and going out. Now, all those reasons are completely fine. I think just ask yourself the question of, well, what kind of business should you start? How should you approach the business depending on what you want to get out of it? And what I mean by that is, if you are starting a business where your goal is to make money, you should approach that in a fundamentally different way than if it's a passion-oriented project, or if it's just you're trying to make a few $100 a month, get there as quickly as possible, and then just, now you can afford lunch. There also is this assumption that you absolutely must love what you do, as in the whole trope of never working a day in your life because you love what you do. My perspective on that is that money is an enabler, right? Just a gatekeeping node, if you will, for a lot of good things in life. As in, the more money you have, the more likely it is that you and the people you love are healthy, that you can do what you want, to spend your time as you want, and that you're secure and that you'll be protected if various bad things happen. And in that sense, the pursuit of money, not for money's sake, but for the byproducts of it, is not a bad thing whatsoever. So if you just want to go into business because you want to make money and you don't think your degree is going to make you money, or you don't know what you want to do, or you're not going to college, for all those reasons, pursuing business for money is fine in that sense. I will just warn that getting into business for money must not discount how you approach business, because if you approach, say, the relationships that are inherent to business, because if you approach the relationships that are innate to business in a very transactional way where you're only in it for the money, that will not go well, and that defeats the original purpose. And rather, by investing yourself into what you do, as one should, and as a good actor, you ultimately will make more money that way. Now, if it's a passion project, again, that is a fundamentally different matter than you're trying to turn a profit. If it's a passion project, I think then it's a question of, well, what do you enjoy? What do you want to do? and how can you maximize the impact and the awareness and the potential of that. And of course, if you can merge the two, that's fantastic. That is the goal. Not a lot of people get there, certainly, but we can all dream. So then once you know why you want to start a business, if you do, I think then consider the costs and the benefits. And that is not such a simple question as it seems. And the reason it is not such a simple question is because the benefits to starting a business go far beyond, say, money, and the costs and the drawbacks to starting a business go well beyond, say, the time or the money that you spend in and on it. However, I think generally people really undervalue the benefits and overestimate the costs. See, I'll say it again, a business is just a catch-all for creating and providing a product or service in the real world, and actually providing that or giving that or creating it for individuals or companies or communities. And when you look at it like that, it is such a multifaceted and valuable thing, because you're getting the skills of creating the product or the service, of going out and providing it and of figuring out how to sell it, of engaging with your customers or clients, and the more hard skills on the technical side of compliance and financials and legal. And along the way, you'll likely meet a lot of great people, your coworkers, your mentors. And you'll also have to work hard at something where you're not set up to succeed. As in, the world is a competitive place because money is a competitive asset. It's something that we all want, and it's relatively scarce in that you can't just grow it on a tree, as the saying goes. And for that reason, since everyone must compete for it, it is not easy to make it. And since it is not easy to make it, you must put an unusual degree of effort into money to make more, right, than the average person makes. And by that logic, there are many other verticals beyond money, whereas the competitive nature of business and money and the world at large require you to have something unusual, to have unusual skills or an unusual value proposition, or build something that is unique, that no one has done before, and that presumably then is difficult to create. And so the general skill set that you build in going about that process of something that is inherently difficult is valuable and applicable to everything. And not just in a career sense, although employers will value that experience over a degree, and I can personally attest to this, and that's not in across every industry or job, but it is true across the majority. But there's something that's valuable in, say, relationships and generally dealing with people, right, which are known for requiring communication and patience and just generally requiring commitment to something over a long period of time. And it's the same thing with your health, right? Going to the gym and eating well. Those are things that are difficult, where the benefits may not obviously or in an upfront sense be seen. And if you take all of that, right, that's really what business is. It's a condensed version of life. It's this game where you're competing with other players, you're engaging and working with and befriending other players to do something that is difficult and really enjoyable at times, and really difficult and not fun at times, and something that's different for everyone, right? No business is the same, no entrepreneurial journey is the same, and certainly the outcome is not always the same. And you also get an incredible amount of niche knowledge when you start a business, because again, in providing a service or product that is valuable, you have to have some body of knowledge attached to that, not only in executing it, but in creating it and going about it, that requires you to know more about something or many things than most other people. And that also is a fundamentally valuable thing. And it's especially valuable in a career sense. And here I want to touch on employment and the subject of money as related to business. And I hope I've made it clear thus far that business shouldn't be centrally tied to money. And if business is a passion project or a side hobby to you, that's fantastic. Go and do that. But a lot of people do get into quote unquote business for money because they want to make money. And so that is a subject that really does have to be touched upon. And I think the difficult question is whether the expected value or expected utility of your degree, or if you're in high school, of those 4 years of high school and your GED is equivalent or lesser than or greater to the expected value or utility of starting a business, right? In a purely monetary sense, that is how people approach, or at least should approach, that equation. And that also varies widely, whether you're looking to just graduate high school or not even that, or you're an Ivy League doctorate student, right? There's such a range there when it comes to education, and the whole subject of education is so tied to money, because it's supposed to prepare you for life, but more specifically for a career where you can go and make money. And in a sense, business is the opponent to that process of education, or at least starting one on your own while going through your schooling. And I think the best way to look at that question is to consider what you want, where you are, and then where most people are and what most people end up getting. And again, this is in a monetary sense while on the subject of money. Now, where you are is purely looking at your situation and the amount of money you're likely to make. In the US, if you are, say, barely graduating high school, you can expect to make under 60 grand a year. If you make 40, 50, 60 grand, that's great. If you make more than that, that's really exceptional for that income level. And that's just statistically speaking. Of course, you're going to find outliers. And then the amount of money you make increases with education up to the point of a doctorate. So whether you get a master's or a doctorate, or PhD won't change the amount of money you make, but up until that point, you will make slightly more. But what that does mean is that on average, an Ivy League graduate is making somewhere in the range of 100 to 120, 130 grand. So that's maybe $10,000 a month if you're average, which just means 50% of people are gonna fall below the 120 and 50% above. That means you are probably on that spectrum, whether you're a freshman in high school now or you're finishing your master's, of looking to make somewhere between, say, 30 or even less, up to say 120, 130 grand a year. And so in a monetary sense, the question to ask yourself is, where on the spectrum are you? And then from there, you can ask the question of, well, how does that compare to the earnings potential of business? And a lot of people will disagree with me on this, but I do believe, and I've seen this proven so many times over, that if you are just dedicated and persistent individual in the realm of business, and again, just value, whereas you're providing products and services that help people, and I mean help in a liberal sense, then you will make a lot of money. And the question, or the assertion, that most or pretty much everyone can, if they really dedicated themselves to, say, making money, could make more than they do, is largely insulting, right? Because that's insinuating that, well, a lot of people can, but they don't, by function of themselves or a lack of whatever in themselves could prompt them to a certain earnings potential. And so many people do work incredibly hard and just don't make an amount of money that reflects that. And that really is just a knowledge barrier. It's knowing what to do and where to put that effort. And what that means is, and what I guess I'm really saying here is, if you know where you're going and what you're doing and you apply that effort intelligently, I have at least me, and I think many would agree, total faith in that you will vastly outperform that whole range of 30 to 120 grand a year. That, of course, is not a simple or a guaranteed or an easy thing, but we are living in the most opportune time in human history, in the least poverty-stricken time in human history, where the earnings potential, especially in the US and any first world country, but really anywhere as well, has just been exploded, versus just take any century, right, since before Christ, since the dawn of human history, and you are better off now in terms of real income and earnings potential. And that's why you are seeing so many people in high school and college, even in middle school, making just incredible amounts of money, right? 10 grand a year, 100 grand, $1 million, $10 million a year from a whole range of businesses. You can do that now. And sure, a lot of people get lucky, but there also is a faction that, through just knowing where to put their effort, really, they nearly invariably will make more than they would if they committed to, say, a job you get with your high school diploma or with your college diploma. And that ties back to, again, why you're in college. If you're in college to go into a certain career, go into that certain career. That's fantastic. If you're in college to make money, then you have to consider this question of, well, how do I actually maximize the amount of money that I'm making? And the median household income in the US is 67 grand, and that's household, not personal. So to make more than most people, you have to make 5 grand a month. Now, making $5,000 a month with your own project is not easy by any means, but if you're willing to put 10 years of effort into this thing, purely in a financial sense, you are likely to make a lot more than, say, 5 grand a month. Now, a shameless plug, I did make a video where I break down my frameworks for going from $0 to $10,000 a month. Whether you're in high school and college, you're far older, whether you're in middle school, I highly suggest you watch that. At least that is 11 minutes of really all my just crunched thoughts on the subject. And I will note, inherent to the question of the amount of money you think you're going to make and being in college and or business for money, you have to ask yourself, well, how do I go about business, as in the type of business you should start? And I can promise you that if you're trying to just make 100 grand a year or 200 grand a year with your own business, that's going to look very different from a passion project or from your billion-dollar, deep tech startup. And now, purely in a monetary sense, I do think there is monetary yield to starting a business that goes beyond the business itself. As in, I think the premise is true that you will generally make more money across any career, across whatever you do, if you are starting businesses in high school and college, really regardless of the success of the venture itself. And I say that because, again, starting a business is an unusual thing, and doing a business well, right, providing a valuable product or service is also an unusual and a difficult thing. That inherently puts you above people who have the same academic experience as you, but don't have this real world layer of experience. And the independence and ability to operate on your own and, have a range of skills from selling to the, technical and soft and hard skills, employers look for that range. And so you will be better off generally having started a business than not, regardless of the field you're going into, in terms of, your degree or, straight out of high school. And of course, you can make the argument that a doctor, right, they're not going to care if you started your own practice if you weren't licensed, and sure, but those licensed fields really are the exception to the rule of the nature of industries and jobs that the vast majority of people go into. I will also say that there is a very deep pool of college and degreed talent nowadays, as in there was a very strange experience I had a few months ago where we were hiring for that marketing company of mine. We put out a job post on LinkedIn. We got 60 applicants in the span of 30 minutes. I set up interviews with all of them. Nearly every single one of those people had an undergrad degree from great schools. Some even had masters, and some were also from your top 50, your top 20, even your Ivy League schools. And that I mean undergrad, not grad degrees. And these people were all applying to a position that paid about $3,000 a month for a very part-time job, so say sub 20 hours a week. Well above minimum wage, you're making in equivalent terms 70, 80 plus grand a year if you can be efficient, right, and actually do the work in a reasonable amount of time, which is that 15 to 20 hour a week mark. But it really did scare me as someone who is in college and getting a degree from a decently good school, whereas in the span of half an hour, I was able to find such a deep pool of talent, all of whom had this incredible academic experience, and all of whom were practically indistinguishable for that shared academic experience. And so what set them apart really was not their academic experience, it was their real world experience. It was the fact that one of them had done 3 internships and another one had started a business where they actually provided the services we were hiring them for years for many clients on their own. The competence that is assumed from a history of providing a product or service does really go a long way in hiring decisions. That's not just my experience, but ask anyone who routinely hires people, again, in fields where licenses aren't required, and they will tell you the same thing. And that's not to say that a degree or schooling won't help you get those jobs. It just means in addition to your schooling, having that real world of experience of starting a business is very valuable. And everything we've touched on thus far is really what you have to gain from a business. And now I want to talk about what you have to lose or what the costs are. Largely, it's a question of time and effort. You probably don't have a lot of money to put into this. You probably are starting from zero or from a few $100 or a few grand to spend or invest into a business. And that's great, but what that does mean is you have to compensate for that lack of, say, financial investment with just raw effort, and by getting good at what you mean to do over time, or by developing something, some process, some product, some service that's unique. And so there is a very real cost in terms of time and effort that is not something to be taken lightly. And it's also not true, I think, to say, well, why don't you just put in less time? And what I mean by that is, if you put in, say, 50% of the hours you won't get 50% of the result. You will get near zero. As in the people who generally win in business and who create great things, ignoring just the aspect of luck, are the ones who just put in a lot of time and intelligent thought and effort. And that does vary somewhat depending on just the model and also who you are. But as a general rule, if you don't make a business or a project a priority, if you don't regularly put time into it, at the very least, then you're really just not likely to get any return on that time. And so if academics are, whether in high school or college, are really what matters to you, or sports, right, go and do that. Or even if just your social life and people, if that is what drives you and what you want to consciously focus on, go ahead and do it. I think just don't sleepwalk into something like a business under the notion that you can just half-ass it and you will get half the results you would otherwise get. And that doesn't mean you have to know exactly what you're doing, nor that you have to be good at what you're doing before you, say, start the business. It just means you need to know that you're going to show up and you're going to try. And if that doesn't hold up, then you're just going to put a lot of hours into a black hole. And that's not to say for some people that doesn't work, but for the vast majority, right, you should play to the rule, not to the exceptions. And that's really just a question of you. And again, why are you in college, or why are you in high school? And what do you want to do, say, after high school? What do you want to do after college? Business is also a very underappreciated discovery mechanism for those things. And if you don't know what you want to do with your life, you may take a class, you may meet some people, right, that introduce you to something that you want to do for a long time. But the process of business is inherently one where you're doing new things all the time, you're discovering and trying new things, and you're failing at some, you're succeeding at some, and really you have to learn sort of and grow throughout it all. And that process of learning, just iterated and compounded over a very long period of time, will bring about a whole just host of experiences and knowledge and ideas that you weren't aware of before. And I can nearly guarantee that you will learn more about yourself and about what you may want to do by starting a business than if you right now are just a sophomore in high school or even a freshman or sophomore in college. That's not the case with all businesses, nor say all colleges or high schools, but that is true for the majority of people. And we are really in a crisis right now where you have all these people that don't know what they want to do, and their plan to figure that out is to take a new class this semester and just hope they stumble across something where they're like, hey, I want to do this for 40 years. And once again, you're not guaranteed to find that in a business, but in terms of just what you open yourself up to, as in just the number, say the X number of new fields or areas of operation that you interact with, you're going to get quite a volume out of a business. And there's that subject again of dropping out that is sort of centrally tied to entrepreneurship when you're in school. For some people, that's as early as high school, where they can't sit through classes and they just don't want to be there, and they know, or they already are making more money than they would if they just finished out their high school degree and went and got a minimum wage job. And for some people, that's a lot tougher of a decision. Say you're at a top 20 school, a great school, your parents are paying for it, and you know what you want to do, and it's not what you're studying, and you want to start a business there, are you really going to drop out for that when you have your whole life, your family, your expectations, society's expectations really saying that, hey, you should continue, you should finish out your degree, when you say really want to drop out? And there are valid points on both of their sides. It's very easy to get caught up in the notion of, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm starting a business and doing that, especially with the just online hype sort of surrounding that nowadays, when really you would just be better off spending 2, 3, 4 more years finishing college or doing well in high school while, say, working on your business on the side. But there are also very valid points to the opposite side, whereas if you genuinely know, or at the very least what you don't want to do, and your academics, your schooling is on a straight path to that point, then starting a business, even dropping out, is great if you're in it for other reasons than say money, or if you if it is passion, if you do want to just be happy and like what you do, you are just better off forget college and dropping out. What I will say, just going off the vast majority of people who start a business in high school or college, is that you should look for absolute indicators or metrics to sort of qualify a decision about dropping out. As in, if you've raised $1 billion and your company's making $100 million a year and you like what you do, you should definitely drop out, right? So then just walk it back from there. Is your company making money? Do you like what you're doing? Do other people like and think what you're doing is valuable? If you check all of those boxes, great, take a gap year. If the gap year goes well, drop out. If not, go back. And if those boxes aren't checked, then it's probably better to at least wait until those boxes are checked and until you can qualify that decision, not just to, say, family or friends or professors, but really just to yourself, and so that you can be confident that you're making the best decision for yourself, and not just yourself in the present, but yourself in the future. And approaching those decisions generally with a level head, where you sleep on them not once but over a lengthy period of time, is nearly always better. Okay, now I want to touch on what I think will best set you up for success as a person in high school or college when it comes to starting a business. So this is if you're thinking about starting a business, you already have started a business, how just best to approach that, but also manage that. And this is again coming from someone that has started a variety of businesses while in both high school and even middle school and now college. And I really don't mean to plug myself again, but a lot of my thoughts, at least on what I found valuable while just generally approaching business as a young person, is right here. So you can click the link to watch that. If you would also take a moment to subscribe right now, I'd appreciate that, and just leave a comment letting me know what type of videos you want to see, what about, say, what I'm doing, college, business, whatever wise, just drop a comment and I will make sure to respond. And so, once again, this may be a controversial opinion, but I think generally people approach the concept of business with too much passion in mind, as in there's this notion that you should enjoy everything you do. There's this notion that if you start a business, you have to love it, you have to love everything about it. But then that same standard isn't applied to other jobs. As in, if you go to work, at a bar, you probably don't love everything about, say, being a waiter or a waitress. Sure, you like some parts of it, but you also don't like parts of it, and you're doing it for various reasons. And the same thing applies to a business. I think you don't have to love all of it. You can like the process and not like what you do. You can learn to like what you do. You can not know what you want to do and just go and try things until you figure something out. And money, again, is an important thing in that it buys, in a lot of ways, health, it buys safety and security, and it does correlate with happiness to some extent. So if something is making money, if it is a fundamentally valuable product or service, well, it is worth it. It is worthwhile to put effort into that. Not regardless totally of passion, but with passion as a variable as opposed to just the determinant really in the equation. Now, I think as a young person as well, and I spoke to this somewhat earlier, but a business in starting one is beneficial for the skills and the knowledge that it gives you. And so I think considering the really high rate of failure and the fact that you probably haven't done this before or don't have really a ton of experience in it, you are really better off, or you probably will be better off if you go about it and go about a business where you get a lot of skills and you learn a whole lot. Because that way, even if the business itself fails, you're left with this skill set and with this knowledge that will be so much beneficial down the line, whether you just get up and try again with another business or whether you go into a conventional career. And there's also this notion in the entrepreneurial space, or at least the sort of digital, young person hype around business, that it's just somehow superior to other careers or other jobs. That's just not true for everyone. If you want to start a business and shut it down in 2 years and go into whatever career you want to, that's fantastic as well. I think there shouldn't be pressure really on either side of the pendulum. But again, regardless of what you do, if you focus on a business where you get skills, you learn things, you're doing new things, you're going to be better off. And that's why I like the agency model for younger people. And I know that's a whole trope, but what that boils down to is, hey, I need to figure out a service that's valuable. I need to figure out how to sell it. And then I need to figure out how to actually interact with my clients and my customers. And that process is so valuable because you're getting good at something niche, right? You're learning how to interact with people. You're creating contracts and sales decks, or cold calling, or learning how to write copy and cold email, or even go speak at conferences and trade events. And that's such a valuable skill set where even if the business itself fails, you're going to be that much better off moving forward. And that ties into the notion that you shouldn't be so focused on the material gain or loss when you're, say, a junior in high school and starting out doing, whatever business you want to. If you approach it as, hey, I'm going to be doing this for a long time in some form, and that's because I generally like this process and I like some things about it, I don't like other things, and I'm going to keep learning and getting better and just figuring it out, you will be so much better off versus the very heavy, the weighted notion of this is over if it fails and I'm set if this succeeds. Because if you want to work for yourself throughout your entire life, it probably won't be your first go in the ring where everything works out. And even if you just want a side hobby that makes a few $100 or $1,000 a month, that is a hard thing. That is an enormously hard thing, and undervaluing that, I think discounting that will just put you in a worse position. Now, one more note on business as, say, a high schooler or a college student. I think you really shouldn't undervalue connections and just people. And I know you've probably been told this before, but there's such power that you'll see at one point or another that comes from just knowing the right people or knowing certain people at the right time. And people are really what governs all of business. They're the investors and the coworkers and the partners and the clients and customers. And certainly in my career thus far, I can point to maybe a dozen people that have just brought about so much gain, whether in terms of learning and knowledge or skill-wise, or money and finances-wise. And it's not the people you'll expect. It's just these random connections that will, if you keep focusing on those to a reasonable extent, will just compound and compound until a person here, you can call a person there, and suddenly you're getting referrals and you have great partners, and business is really just about the fantastic people around you. And although a lot of people do approach it in the solopreneur way and the digital sort of nomad lifestyle, business once again will be about the people, and you can do a lot in business on your own. You can try a lot of things on your own. You can succeed at a lot of things on your own, but ultimately and at some point there will be other people in the equation, or at the very, very least you will be better off knowing people and being able to bring them into that equation. So making sure that off the bat you have those relationships will make it more enjoyable, and more so will massively further the probability that what you're doing will ultimately work out. Now, as for specific strategies when it comes to business, please let me know what you want to see. I am an open book. There also is a link to a Google Drive in the description where I put tons of resources. That's just what's helped me in business and a lot of things that I've created. So there are 3 free books of mine in there. There are also the exact scripts we use in several businesses of mine to sell our products and services. And do just let me know what you want to see on that drive, just any resources, any internal docs, sales tool, etc. I can get it in there. Now, there is one more part to this video that is a Q&A that I filmed a few months ago. This is Future John here. Just wanted to throw in the fact that I will be including one additional segment following the Q&A. That's going to be 3 hacks or mental models or first principles that have really helped me also as a young person and a student in business. I really hope you do enjoy that. Feedback is also appreciated. And again, that will be right after that Q&A segment. I think if you're in high school and or college, you will really find this interesting. There are a bunch of very applicable questions to you. That's things like burnout and time management and some more content that I think falls within this bucket of actually helping you or hopefully just prompting you in a way that will make the process of starting a business, or if you already have started one while in school, of managing and growing it easier than the alternative. Because again, business is just what and who you know, and I can at least speak to myself in that the volume of effort and time I have put into just horrendously backward things because I just didn't know, one simple thing, or we were using the wrong script, or I was building the wrong tool, or whatever it was. Just trust me, if you put in the marginal effort to learn those things, you will be better off. So I do urge you to pursue and explore either my resources or whatever else is out there. And there is just an incredible amount of just great videos and books and articles out there. Now, I asked you guys on my Instagram for some questions, as again, I have been off social media completely for multiple years now, so I'm going to get to answering those now. We will go rapid fire here. So the first question is, do you still work out? That is because I was an influencer in the fitness space, again, for a number of years. That was my primary sort of domain of content. I am still working out somewhat. You can see some of those recent photos, I believe, on my Instagram. I'm trying to build a personal brand. How do I do it? I think the core there comes down to, again, deliver value and differentiate. When you're building a personal brand, it's really just what value do you provide. I think about that on a spectrum between entertainment and education. So generally, if you're producing content and trying to build that brand, it's to what degree can you provide entertainment or education to people? And can you do that in a manner really that just keeps their attention for sub 30 seconds, right? If you can do that today, whether that's a short form video, an article, podcast, etc. If you can keep their attention for some length of time, you will succeed. So deliver value and differentiate. Differentiation especially helped me when I was doing content. I would take the fitness space, right? As opposed to doing a hard workout or trying to compete as per my physique with other influencers, I would do things like 1,000 squats a day. And in that way, I was able to differentiate and deliver that entertainment and sort of shock value. Now, how do you combine business with school? I am a freshman in college as well. I think it just is a matter of priorities, and you will get done what you need to in the day, especially if there is sort of a gun to your head. So prioritize, and it gets done. What's the importance of education? I think what I've talked about in this video especially is value. It is, can you provide value? That is fundamentally a matter of education, not necessarily schooling, but education. So if school fits into that, fantastic, do it. If it doesn't fit into that, then pursue that on your own terms. So how do you spend your time? In addition to school, it's primarily work, and then my girlfriend and friend and family as well. Is a young age an impediment to making money? That is a good question. I think in this age where The internet has largely democratized things. It is not a disadvantage. Rather, the younger you start, essentially, the better you can set yourself up, and ultimately the better you will do down the line. So it is really an advantage. And I'd say, yeah, start now, and trust me, you will be so much better off and thankful you did that in 5, 10, 20, 50 years. How has your mental health changed as a result of stepping back from social media? Again, it has been a few years now. It has not changed much. It was not bad because of posting on social media, but it is different. I think there is somewhat more flexibility around my body and look, certainly, so that has been nice. How do you start investing in the stock market? Again, I did write a book on investing in the stock market and a few others on sort of crypto and other markets as well. To start investing, just create an account and choose something and put some amount of money in. Just putting $10 or $20 or $30 into a stock, a bond, a money market fund, a mutual fund, etc. Just getting comfortable in that environment, I think, is the way to go. And that's also one of those things where you will be so thankful that you did that in 10, 20, 50 years. Okay, what does a typical day look like to you? I wake up at 9 or so a.m. 2 days a week I have classes, the other days I don't. Then I'll usually work. I'll have my first meal at 1 to 2 p.m. or so. Then I'll either work some more, or if I have a class again on those 2 days, I'll do that. Then at 6 or so p.m. I'll eat, or I'll be working out. And then usually my girlfriend or friends, and then just reading or relaxing or something like that, and then bed at midnight or so. Okay, tips on making 1,000 reps, which was the name of my TikTok account, and becoming an influencer. I think it is about niching down the novelty, at least it was for me. So it was really, let me find my niche. Again, for me, that was fitness challenges like 1,000 squats a day, 1,000 calf raises a day, 500 pull-ups, World War II fitness tests, right? Things like that. And then the fundamental question, especially in the age of short-form content, is can you maintain someone's attention for 10, 20 seconds in a video that is 10 to 20 seconds in length? So I was able to do that, again, by niching down and pursuing just novelty. And if you can do that across any video subject, as in just keep someone's attention compared to peers, you will do very well. So I think that would be my number one tip. What keeps you motivated? I think that would be the people around me more so, and then also just what I can do. So what I feel like I should be doing, and potentially what I could be able to do. What advice can you give to someone going through burnout? That's an interesting question. I think if you live your life in a way that is liberal with regard to dopamine, as in if you use social media a lot, if you're watching TV, if you're partying, drugs and alcohol, right, etc., I don't think burnout actually reflects your mental state. I think that largely is these external factor and stimuli just sort of messing with your brain and making you enjoy things that are long-run productive as opposed to short-run pleasurable. Seem a lot more appealing. But that ignores the fact that there could be a fundamental problem in what you're doing that is causing that burnout. So I think just consider whether logically as opposed to emotionally, or how you're physically responding to something. Just consider, well, is this actually worth it? Is it worthwhile? If you're burnt out and it is worthwhile, then figure out a way to keep doing it, or try and just figure out some way to make that better for you. If it's not worth it and you're burnt out, just cut it. It's just not worth it. This is John from the future again, just reminding you that there is one more segment in this video following the Q&A you just heard. That is those 3 hacks or mental models in business as a young person, and that will finish off the video. I'm going to break down 3 processes or hacks that have massively helped me as a young person in the domain of business and entrepreneurship. Now, if you want to learn about my personal story and the businesses I've built, and then how I invest and distribute that money, you can see those 2 videos right here. And again, these are general mental modes or frameworks and first principles that have really helped me throughout the past 8 years. I am now a freshman in college and 18. Now, the first hack or model is that of high-ticket offerings. And what I mean by this relies on the following premise, and that is, it is not 1,000 times harder to sell a $1,000 product or service to one customer than it is to sell 1,000 $1 products or services to 1,000 clients or customers. And this has so many implications for how you approach income and what makes you money, and kind of falls back on that sort of 80-20 principle of a relative minority of your effort and time will yield a majority of output. And to consider this concept, we can think about the two businesses of mine that have been most successful, one of those in publishing and one of those in marketing. Now, one of the businesses relies upon selling a very high quantity of goods where we make a few dollars or a very slight margin per product. So to do well, we have to sell 1, 5, 10,000 people a month and get them to purchase those products, which in that case was books. On the other hand, for marketing, we make several $1,000s or we charge several $1,000s per month per client. That means to make, say, $2,000, we can sell one client, versus in the other business, to make $2,000, we have to sell 800 books or products. So on one side, we have to convince 800 people, while on the other side, we have to convince one person, all to make the same amount of money, so let's say a few grand per month. And while it can seem that no one has money and that it's really hard to convince people to buy when you're especially young, but also just generally new to your industry, what you realize over time is that businesses and people do have deep pockets. They just spend on what actually brings them value. And if you can actually bring value to companies, even to some wealthy individuals, but more so companies, right, they will spend thousands of dollars a month with you. Again, if you can just fundamentally bring them value, whether that's on some very niche vertical of their business or to the business as a whole. And again, it is not 1,000 times harder to sell a business on service for $1,000 a month than it is to go and find 1,000 potential customers for a product where you make much less, again, on a per product basis. So if you're young especially, but generally as well, I 1,000% recommend that you focus on those high ticket offers or services or products. And especially if you're young or new to an industry, but generally as well, I 1000% recommend that you pursue that high ticket product or service route. It just is that much easier to make more money faster. And it does ultimately reflect something that is more valuable as well, as in a product or service that a company or a person will pay thousands of dollars for. If you can crack the code on that, right, the sky is really the limit. Now, number two is the idea of leverage. This somewhat does tie into Naval and that sort of domain of thinking. What that just means, and again, especially as a young person, but generally as a whole, in that there are certain facets of business, there are certain skills you can learn, and there are certain aspects of business and entrepreneurship as a whole that will multiply your leverage, and leverage is what ultimately creates wealth. And by that I mean you can think of most successful people in society as essentially just having massive multipliers on their decision, right? If the CEO of a company makes a decision, that decision will be executed by, say, the 1,000 or 10,000 people below him or her, right? And then that leverage, the decision making of the CEO, will ultimately have much wider ramifications because of their ability and their leadership. Meanwhile, if you make one video and that video is viewed by 10 million people, you didn't have to make the video 10 million times. You made it once and people saw it 10 million times. The same applies to code, right? If you program a simple just tool, right, and you publish that on the internet or as an app, people can use that 1 million times and the effort you put in was the same. You just programmed it once. So that in essence is a leverage, right, on your time and your skill. Whereas you do something once, right, and then other people can either do it 1 million times or other people do it for you. And finally, with money, if you make an investment, that money is working for you, right? Your will, as in, let's say, I think investment A is going to go up. I think investment B is going to go up. If you put your money into those investments, that money is working on behalf of your decision. It is a leverage multiplier, essentially, for what you think is going to happen, that being the value of those investments increasing. So the 4 levers, essentially, are the multipliers that you can leverage as a young person and generally throughout your entire life, are code, media, people, and then capital, right? So if you have more money, if you have more people that will respond and do things on behalf of you, if you have media, and then if you have code that runs for you, those are all multipliers of your time. They will ultimately reflect your decisions and what you want to do, what you want to see, what you want to happen, and what you can make happen through something you may personally create. Again, like something that you program or a piece of media. So an article, a book, video, etc. So you can think of hyper successful conventionally people So you can think of materially successful people as just grand arbiters of leverage, as in they can say one thing, they can believe one thing, and a lot will happen because of that. So the more leverage you can apply, right, the more you can have code that works on behalf of you and media that gets viewed after you create it, and then the more people that work for you, and then finally the more money that works on behalf of you, the more leverage you will have, and generally the better you will do, and in a better position you will be. This third hack or process is that of selective outreach. What I want to first mention is that I'm giving away a ton of free resources. I will never sell you on anything. I'm not charging for this. It's literally just PDFs where you can go to the link and you can get this stuff. I don't even want your email. Those links are in the description. Right now, these are the resources that are in there. I also am adding more over time. So if this video came out a while ago, you will see, trust me, a lot more in there. And this is all stuff I'm giving away for free. All I ask is that you subscribe right now so I can keep making videos like this. Now again, I just want to touch on those 2 wealth frameworks I talked about in the last video, one of which is how I actually built 2 businesses to $10,000 plus a month in profit, the other of which is how I plan to get to $100 million net worth. The 3-word descriptions for those models are right here, and make sure to click on that other video to see how I actually earn the money to make these investments. What I do ask is that you subscribe so I can keep making videos like this that at least would have helped me and I would have enjoyed when I was in my younger years. So again, this third hack is that of selective outreach, and that is something that I've personally just come to realize more and more as I've grown and as I've worked and operated out of more environments, and that is just that people really are accessible and a lot more accessible than you would think. Right now I'm in university. That is arguably a great time to meet a lot of people, and a lot of especially people in high positions or positions of authority or again leverage. But this applies to everyone everywhere, and that is just if you send an email, if you send a LinkedIn message, if you just call someone, and all that information is accessible, people are a lot more receptive than you would think. And just asking for an internship, right, to meet someone, to discuss an idea, you will never regret that. And that so many more times than you think will go better than you think, because these are just people at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how much money, how many followers, etc. that they have. And they were in your position once, and if they will feel good if they help you, and if you have something of interest to them, again, an idea, they would absolutely go for it much more than you would think. That doesn't take away from the tactical value of outreach. Again, the first premise or the first principle to go off of is that this information is available. There are platforms like this where you can get information on everyone remotely influential, right? Their phone numbers, their emails. And this doesn't mean you should just spam everyone. But what it does mean is that if you have something that you want to say to these people, right? If you have something that you can provide, especially of value to them, right? Like, again, an idea, if you want to brainstorm, if you want to meet them, etc., you can contact them. And often just having a conversation versus asking for something is the way to go. Like, let's say you want to start a company, you're in a new city, you have an idea, but you're not sure of it. If you just go to, say, student-run VC firms in that city, you search those on LinkedIn, and then you find their emails through one of these outreach or lead databases, or you just find them on LinkedIn, and you just email these guys. You will most likely be able to talk to 20, 30 people this week about that idea. You'll learn a lot. You can also talk to industry experts about that idea. And then from there, you'll be introduced to other people and ideas and opportunities. It just really doesn't get worse, right? Like, you will not be in a worse position by just asking those questions and having those conversations. And then if you do have a predetermined goal, right? If you're trying to raise money, if you're trying to find employees, if you're trying to get hired, that information is available. All the key decision makers that you could potentially contact or you could benefit from contacting, they're available, right? Their phone numbers, their emails, their assistants, their PR team, etc. So just email them, just make the connection, and genuinely that will pay off in so many ways at some point in time, much more than you think. That's the video. This has been a long one, but please let me know what kind of videos you want to see, and of course subscribe for more content like this. I think we have doubled the channel in the last few weeks, and it's great to see and just hear all the support, because I have been off social media for a very long time now, for a number of years, and it is certainly good to be back. So best of luck with your business. We're all supporting you, and I hope we can support each other in the comments, and I will see you in the next one.
Here's how I made $120,000 as a high school senior, and you can too. So my first income source was a publishing company that I started 6 years ago. Then it was slowly built over time by writing my own books and hiring other writers. Now the other big source is this company, which builds enterprise marketing and management solutions for construction companies. Now it is much less exciting, but it did scale faster. And here's my framework on how you can do it too. And make sure to leave any questions in the comments.